Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tearing into the hidden ledger of Irish banking. So let's skip the waffle and get straight to the hard data.
You literally have to see these numbers to believe them. Look at that massive, dark slice right there. That's the towering profits the banks are holding on to. And then, look next to it. That tiny, practically invisible sliver? That's what working Irish families actually get back on their savings. It's a staggering divide, isn't it? This isn't just some abstract economic theory. This is the stark reality of what the banks rake in from the public versus what the plain people of Ireland actually get in return. It completely sets the stage for how banking operates here today.
We're basically looking at two entirely different economies living under the exact same roof. On one side, you've got the corporate banking sector, an absolute engine right now, churning out soaring profits. But on the other side, the borrowers and savers, the everyday working families. We call this brutal dynamic the squeeze, because while the corporate ledgers are looking fiercely healthy, the families on the other side are just trying to keep their heads above water. Everyday folks are feeling the pinch in a very, very real way.
Now, to understand what's driving this squeeze, we need to look at the interest rate spread. Let's strip away the financial jargon for a second. The spread is, quite literally, the gap between two things: the massive interest rate a bank charges you when you take out a loan, and the absolutely tiny rate it pays you when you lodge your money with them. That gap? Well, that's where the magic happens for the banks. It's exactly what's causing a family's mortgage pain on one side and their savings stagnation on the other. It's a double-edged sword, for sure, and the working family is catching both blades.
So let's look at the first pillar of this, the mortgage squeeze. We simply can't talk about Irish banking without looking directly at the intense pressure placed on mortgage holders today.
The sheer volume of bank profits extracted from mortgages absolutely dwarfs the stagnant wages of the working family that's actually paying it off. This tells the whole story, really, and it affects absolutely everyone. If you're an established homeowner, your disposable income is just being swallowed whole by rising repayments. And if you're a renter, well, you're desperately trying to scrape together a deposit to buy a house in a market where the cost of borrowing is extraordinarily high compared to what you're actually taking home. Wages just aren't keeping pace with the pure cost of keeping a roof over your head in this country.
Now, let's flip over to the savings rate trap. Because if you thought borrowers had it tough, we really need to look at the other side of the ledger, at everyday people just trying to put a few quid by for a rainy day.
Just look at that stark 0.something%. That is the grim reality of the savings trap. While mortgage rates have shot right up, the returns given to Irish savers have stayed practically glued to the floor. And why do they stay so phenomenally low? Because every single fraction of a percent the bank doesn't pay out to a saver is a fraction that feeds straight into their own bottom line. Working families are constantly told to save, to be responsible, right? But the system effectively traps those savings, offering practically zero real return while inflation just eats away at its value. It's a very bitter pill to swallow.
And then we have death by hidden fees. Because the interest rate spread isn't the only tool they use. We have to look at how banks generate revenues straight out of your everyday current account.
We've all seen these daily traps on our statements, haven't we? Daily maintenance fees, just for having the sheer audacity to hold an account. ATM charges for accessing your own cash. Unexpected penalty fees if a direct debit bounces by mistake. Eye-watering overdraft interest if you dip into the red a few days before payday. Individually, they look like small change, just a few euro here and there. But collectively, they constantly chip away at a family's hard-earned wages. It builds this massive sense of frustration month after month, feeling like you're being penalized just for participating in the modern economy.
Which leads us to a history of frustration. To really grasp why this divide feels so incredibly personal to the Irish public, we need to take a step back and look at the broader history of banking here.
The frustration you hear today didn't just appear overnight. Back in the 90s and the 2000s, we saw massive expansion and the Celtic Tiger boom, which was basically defined by incredibly aggressive lending. Then obviously came the sheer devastation of the 2008 crash. The 2010s were defined by the brutal fallout, austerity, the whole tracker mortgage controversy, and the massive public bailouts that working people shouldered to save the very institutions we're talking about today. And now, in the 2020s, we're seeing the evolution into this highly concentrated, profit-heavy model. These past crises just compound on top of each other. People remember exactly who paid the price when things went south, and they're acutely aware of who is reaping the rewards now that things are supposedly going right.
It really comes down to this one thought. Public frustration with banks stems from this hidden ledger of fees, penalties, and uneven spreads. That hits the nail on the head. It beautifully grounds all the charts, the percentages, and the financial data we just went through right back into the raw human emotion of the Irish working family.
This isn't just business. It is deeply personal for families trying to manage their livelihoods while feeling like the deck is entirely stacked against them. So, that brings us to the end of our explainer, and it leaves us with one incredibly provocative question. Who really pays for the hidden ledger of Irish banking? We've seen the data, the massive spreads, the fees, and the history. As the landscape continues to change, we really have to ask ourselves what the future balance of power is going to look like between hardworking Irish families and a highly profitable banking sector. Thanks a million for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions, and we'll see you next time.